NDLEA, there seems actually to be no end in sight to the back and forth between the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency and the Nigeria Police Force, where NDLEA is saying that drug Mules contacted Abba Kyari's team and not its officers. NDLEA is also saying that it has no reason to shield anyone who may be indicted in the course of the ongoing investigation of a 25-kilogram cocaine deal involving a gang headed by DCP Abba Kyari. A statement by the agency's spokesman, Abba asserted that, on the contrary, the traffickers who were apprehended at the airport in Enugu were in touch with the police team led by Mr. Kyari. Mr. Abba assured that the NDLEA remains committed to the evidence-based investigation and its resolve cannot be weakened by any misrepresentation of facts. But in a twist of events, spokesman for the Nigeria Police Force, CSP Olumuyiwa Adejobi, said an interim investigation revealed that the two international drug couriers who were arrested at the Kano Ibiam International Airport, Enugu, had strong ties with some officers of the NDLEA. So according to CSP Adejobi, the narcotics agency had officers in Enugu who were on drug cartels, on the drug cartel's payroll. He further disclosed that the two arrested couriers confirmed that the modus was for the transnational drug barons to conspire with the NDLEA officers on duty and send them their pre-boarding photographs for identification, seamless clearance and unhindered passage out of the airport with the narcotics. Now let's talk this through by speaking with a lawyer, public affairs analyst Muyiwa Shobo. And I have in the studio, he's joining me in the studio. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
And we also have another discussant, a second discussant on Zoom, managing editor, Avalon Daily, Ayodele Adio. Thank you so much for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Great. Now let me take it from studio before I go to Ayodele on Zoom. Well, some operatives. Well, you know, Abba Kyari is someone who really enjoyed publicity. He leveraged the social media platforms to, you know, show what he has gained, what he has enjoyed, and all that. But all the same, his hand was caught in a cookie jar. So how have you been reading, gauging the mood of reactions to this Abba Kyari gate?
Yeah, actually, thanks for having me. Let's start from the reaction of the police to this case. Obviously, and it's clear that this Abba Kyari is involved in this drug deal. I think it's actually wrong for the police to come and be so defensive. I say, okay, fine, yeah, he's our guy, but your guys are involved too, so you have to assure us that you are going to prosecute your guys as well. I think that was the wrong reaction for all intent and purposes. Yeah. Abba Kyari is already involved in some international, big deal indictment from the United States and so on and so forth. So I do not see why the police will become so defensive of him immediately, rather than say, okay, fine, we have seen what the investigation is showing from the NDLEA perspective, and we will encourage NDLEA to pursue this case to its natural conclusion, rather than saying, well, look, they did that too when Abba Kyari was first indicted. They said, well, there's some gaps in the investigation by the FBI, and they are going again in that route. I think it's the wrong direction. I think they have to just stand up and say, look, we are looking at this. NDLEA is right on its investigation to push for this and prosecute this case rather than come out being defensive of Abba Kyari.
But then it does appear that there are some other bad eggs in the NDLEA, because the police is also saying that, well, what about some of your guys, some of your officials who are actually fingered in this kind of transaction? So what does this say about the NDLEA's fight, their stance against drug trafficking or drug dealings?
No, it's very bad, and we all know that, and there are no excuses for that. But from what I've been looking at, NDLEA is not saying they're not going to prosecute their own guys. Right. Of course, they pointed those guys and they fished them out. They named them, those who are involved, and let the NDLEA do its work. Prosecute these folks. Don't come up with excuses, or how about your own guys? That's not the way to look at it. It's bad. If you look at law enforcement generally in our country, it's cast such much aspersion on our country. But the image is so horrible. I was reading some statistics last week on the ranking of police departments in the world. We're dead last in the rankings of the world. And it's so bad. And I know, you can't just say all the officers are bad, because some of them are actually victims themselves. But the fact that where we are, when you have police officers and NDLEA officers being involved in drug dealing, it's a horrible image for the country. It's saddening.
Well, let me go to our other guest on Zoom, Ayodele Adio. Well, you've been watching, following events and reactions from here and there. What has been your reading of these reactions, and what would you like to see in the immediate?
Yeah, first, I think that there's a lot of disappointment. A lot of people are deeply disappointed that, the famed super cop, who was known for busting series of high-profile cases and closing, very, very difficult assignments on behalf of the IG, that's the Inspector General of Police, will be caught in this sort of mess. The idea that senior police officers even have connections to drug dealers where they can sell 15 kilograms of drugs, as alleged by the spokesperson of the NDLEA, and sell of those drugs within 24, 48 hours is baffling, if not shocking. It shows the extent of the rot. It should worry every well-meaning Nigerian that there's a strong, it seems or appears that there's a strong connection between a few bad eggs in our security agencies with men of the underworld. And that for me is the most worrying aspect of it. The fact that, law enforcement officers can intentionally collude amongst themselves, or attempt to collude amongst themselves to want to sell hard drugs, to the dark market and all of that is really, really worrying. It also brings to mind how many of these kinds of deals would have happened in the past, how many are ongoing now, and not just about drugs, and in different spheres or aspects of our country. And so it's a situation where the Nigerian people are yet again disappointed with their police institution, and especially with, in quote, their star cop. To say that if their star cop can be caught in this sort of mess, how the police institution itself be redeemed, if it can indeed be redeemed. And so that for me is the worry. And of course, we have all our eyes on this issue to see that justice is done and it's pursued to a logical conclusion. And we hope, that the NDLEA has the courage and the will to see that this case gets to a conclusive end. I trust that, Buba Marwa, who is also part of the military elite, will have no fear pursuing this case to a logical conclusion. And we hope that serves as a deterrence to other officers who spot or cast a bad light or bad image on the Nigerian police. Because at least now, the IG's intelligence response unit has been suspended, right, despite all the work that they are doing at the moment because of one bad egg or a few bad eggs in that particular unit.
Well, among other recognitions and awards, the Maiduguri-born officer was in June given a standing ovation at the session of the House of Representatives, for his exemplary, exceptional work in the fight against criminality in Nigeria. Earlier, Presidential Medal for Courage in April 2016 and was declared 2018 Africa's Best Detective. Even a street in his hometown was named after him. But then, in spite of all of these, some have called on the National Assembly to withdraw the honor that that was bestowed upon him. Are you also thinking in this line?
I mean, because he essentially is the poster boy for the Nigerian police, and if your poster boy is in the middle of the most scandalous situation that anyone could find himself, if not the most criminal of all situations that anyone would find himself, I think it's incumbent on the country to at least redeem its image and redeem the image of the police institution, by pulling back some of these awards until this case is pursued to the very end. If at the end of this, which I really doubt, there's some way he can prove his innocence, then those honors can be restored. But the event that they cannot, he can't prove his innocence, and there's a watertight case against him, then of course those honors should be stripped off completely, because like I said, he is the poster boy of the Nigerian police. And if the entire world read the headlines on our papers today, on our blogs, and see that your super cop, the one who's had a presidential medal, the one who's been honored by the National Assembly, is part of a drug cartel, that's the most embarrassing situation that you can have. Mind you, after noting that in 2017, or was it in 2018, the Nigerian police was listed as the most corrupt institution in Nigeria, even though the Nigerian police pushed back on this very strongly. Like my Barrister Shobo just said, the Nigerian police institution is one of the worst in the world. And so if again your super cop is being caught in this sort of scandalous situation, with all the honors, the national accolades that he carries, my goodness, you have no idea how much damage this does to us as brand Nigeria and the Nigerian police in itself. And so at this moment, they need to do a lot of soul searching, a lot of introspection, and they need to take the very hard decisions to not just save the image of the country, but to save the integrity and the image of the Nigerian police, which is important if they are going to be able to enforce the law going forward in our country.
Well, let me bring this to the learned silk in the studio, Barrister Muyiwa Shobo. Well, when you have this conversation with people, a lot of people are saying, out of the opinion, public affairs analysts, that this whole NDLEA of a thing, this issue coming up, being trumped up, might just be a charade. And it may be a decoy not to allow him to be extradited to the United States. Does that resonate with you?
Yes, that's a reasonable suspicion, really. Because normally when you have, let me give you an example. The other guy who was involved in this internet, whatever, the Kenyan guy, he's going through extradition process now. He's going to be extradited to the United States. And that was a step that the Kenyan government took to restore or redeem itself of this. I don't know much about the guy. I don't know whether he was part of the police or so he was just an ordinary, or he's just an ordinary citizen. But here we have a more serious issue, because this guy is our super cop that we have exhibited all over the world, has been, exemplary in his activities. Now, with this new charge, it means technically that he will not be able to be extradited to the United States because of this ongoing case. And no matter how long this takes, and of course, we know our judicial system here, it's going to take a long time. And what Nigeria will prove is that, well, this is our jurisdiction, this guy has committed an offense here, we have to prosecute him first before we send him to the United States. So yes, the suspicion is right that this may be a decoy to prevent his extradition. You remember the case of Buriji Kashamo, who was also indicted in the United States. He was never extradited until, unfortunately, he died. We are looking at the same situation here, that this is just going to stop everything. And the United States, of course, I think they know that, because Nigeria has original jurisdiction here. If he's been prosecuted here, they have to wait for the prosecution to conclude before extraditing him. And this may not conclude in another 10 years. So yes, people are actually reasonable to suspect that.
Well, this is someone in the police institution, in the police force, that has a battered image. A lot of people are not reposing their confidence when it comes to believing or trusting the police. But then Abba Kyari was trying to do the police is a friend thing by using the social media to show what he does behind the scenes and how he so many things that he has achieved and all that. But still, it has brought the image, a dent on the image, further dent on the image of the Nigeria police. What would you say the police needs to do, and how much you've really observed the reaction, the body language to this issue so far? Because it was supposed to be on suspension before we get this again in January.
Yes. The first thing for me, from my perspective, is to stop reacting in such a negative way. getting on this, putting out this image of trying to protect him or something, or being defensive, that is causing actual, even more damage to the police's image. Now, Abba Kyari, we know, he's on suspension. Just push, withdraw. With the first thing, if I were advising the police, I said, go to the government, try to withdraw all these honors that he had. And that will show that they are actually, pushing to restore their image. They haven't said anything about that. Everything that they have come out to say was, oh, well, there's gaps in the investigation. Well, how about the NDLEA prosecuting its own guys or its own men? That is a bad way. In fact, they are encouraging this, and it is really bad. They should step back, let the law take its course. Okay, push for further investigation. The investigation that they conducted that led to his suspension, they were saying, well, we haven't found anything wrong except that he was mingling with hobnobbing with some, suspicious guys, and that led to the suspension. No, they need to push for that, call for more investigation, and prosecute the case. Just vigorously, and that will show the world that we are trying to restore our image. The image is really bad.
Right, I'll come back for your parting shot, but let me quickly go back to our guest online, Ayodele Adio. Well, security operatives are usually known for their discreet lifestyle, but not Kyari. He appeared, even frolicking with the media, what's it called? The celebrities of this world, and then you get to see him doing all of these razzmatazz here and there. How should we begin to be seeing, because we need to see another image of our security officers? What would be your, do I say subtle advice to those who might want to also step into the ways of Abba Kyari in their dealings?
I don't even need. I would assume that they are adults, and I don't advise adults, but clearly they can see the consequences of bad behavior and the consequences of going through the wide and wild path. Right. And you talked about redeeming the image of the Nigerian police. I think there's a short and there's a long-term approach to this. The long-term approach would require some sort of a strategic plan where they can match actions with narratives. There needs to be, I've always advocated for quality recruitment, quality control within the service units. A lot of police reforms would have to go in place before you can have, before you can raise the quality of policing in Nigeria such that we can redeem and rebuild the image of the police institution in Nigeria. But that's a long-term approach. It will take a lot of investments, both in quality of staffing, the resources that are committed to the Nigerian police and all of that. But in very short term, because the image of the police is largely at stake as we speak, and they need to show that Abba Kyari, for instance, is not representative of the average Nigeria police. The IR unit, which he once led, which is now led by Tunji Disu, the former head of RRS in Lagos State, who are doing an incredible work, one of which is busting a child trafficking syndicate in the southeastern part of the country, must also take decisive steps to ensure that the public knows that they are also upright men and men of integrity, working tirelessly in that unit to protect lives and to ensure that the job is done, or their respective jobs are carried out, to logical conclusions with little or no corruption involved. So that is the immediate task of the Nigeria police, to ensure that they dissociate themselves from this scandalous issue that is ongoing. And be more transparent, be more accountable, and to show the Nigerian people that he's not representative of what they stand for and what their men actually stand for.
Makes sense. Let me quickly bring this back to the studio, and that's your final thoughts. Very shortly, very briefly, there was a Deputy Superintendent of Police, George Iyamo, who was executed by firing squad in mid-1982 for supplying guns to deadly Lawrence Anini robbery gang that terrorized the now Edo and Delta states. If Abba Kyari is found guilty of these several allegations, what punitive actions are lying in wait for him? Well, because he might be jailed for life.
Very briefly. Let the law take its course. I'm not going to support anybody being shot for this kind of offense. I think it's clear in the law what the punishments are. and he should just face that punishment. The police must come out to condemn him. This is one person causes so much. They should come out and condemn him and let the law take its course.
All right, thank you very kindly. Lawyer, public affairs analyst Muyiwa Shubo, and our guest via Zoom, managing editor Avalon Daily, Ayodele Adio. Thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you for having me.